can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
ESBR Boxing, we're back, myself and Paul Kelly. That means one thing and one thing only. We're here in preview mode, and we're here previewing World Championship Cruiserweight action that's taking place over in Anaheim shortly this week. But before we get to that, I'd like to say like and subscribe to the channel. We've got all your boxing needs up and under one roof, reviews, previews, big five breakdowns, all that good stuff. So please check out the channel for all that. But Paul, as mentioned, we are here. We are talking World Cruiserweight action, undercard of obviously the main man, we're a big fan of, Jake Paul. This is an undercard fight, as it should be, because Jake Paul is the main event. But we're talking obviously Gilberto Ramirez versus Yuniel Dorticos, which takes place for the WBO World Cruiserweight title. Paul, first and foremost, we like to jump straight into it, don't we, before we unpick some of the themes possibly about the division and how far we think those guys can go and who they might necessarily fare against other opponents. But first and foremost, if you'd like to please just share your thoughts on this fight, whether you think it's competitive, and then obviously as well a prediction. Who do you think wins this one, how and why?
Yeah, thanks, mate. Looking forward to this. Yeah, I think when you look at this and you think, I mean, Dorticos is a name, having been in there with, his only two defeats are to Gassiev and Briedis, really. He is a former world champion, but he's 39 now, hasn't maybe a bit inactive over the last few years, whereas you look at Gilberto Ramirez and he's just kind of got better and better recently since his move up from light heavy to cruiser. He looks pretty good. Like, boxed Billum Smith's ears off last time, barely lost a minute of any round, looked really good. So yeah, I think this is a ZURDO Ramirez victory. I think he keeps both his WBO and WBA belts. And yeah, my thoughts on the fight are that I think Ramirez wins, but ultimately I just want to see the OPETAIA fight, which I'm sure we'll come on to in a minute. But that's ultimately what I want to see. So win this, and we saw OPETAIA win a few weeks ago there in what 5 or 6 rounds against Claudio Squeo. So the timeline matches up. Like, give us Zurdo Ramirez and Jai OPETAIA before the end of the year. But obviously, yeah, I think Ramirez wins this. I'm going to go points, mate. I think he wins this on points. I think he'll outbox Dorticus fairly convincingly and win a fairly wide unanimous decision on the Jake Paul, Julio Cesar Chavez undercard.
Yeah, no, I think can't disagree with that. I think we've been, when I say we, I've been, I think both of us have to agree, but maybe myself more than you've been really critical of Gilberto Ramirez for some time and just not really rating him as a fighter. But then you kind of look through his CV and then you have Billum Smith, Guillermo, Joe Smith Jr. Obviously, you look at some of those names, you think actually he's put a good run together there since losing to Bivol. So maybe I have to kind of reframe my sort of perception of him there. But then I agree with you. I look at Dorticos, he's only been stopped once. So as against Gassiev, no shame in that. Obviously, a couple of losses, but only stopped once. Gilberto Ramirez, not the most powerful. So for me, I think this goes the distance. I do. I think I suppose you look at it, maybe say Dorticos has got what 25 KOs and 27. So could Dorticos actually stop Ramirez? Possible. But I'm actually going to agree with you. I think Ramirez is going to win this. I think he's going to win it on points. And then, like you say, I think we should hopefully get into that Joe Pataya fight next. So we're going to talk about that. Not only do we hope we're going to get it next, we're going to talk about it next, Paul. We're going to mention that now. And obviously, I suppose Opetaia's a weird one last time out in a fight that no one was really that excited about. I think, kind of needs some dance partners, does need Joe Opetaia really, because people are getting a lot of bags of talent. Yes, the division's not the strongest, but you're going, does he move? Does he do whatever? But Zurdo Ramirez fights Joe Opetaia next. How do you see that one going, Paul? What's your prediction there? Months away, obviously, but how would you see that one going?
Yeah, I think that's a fight where OPETAIA would be a favourite. And I think he's a right would be rightly the favourite. But I actually make that a closer fight than maybe some people think. I think a lot of people are getting very high on Jai Opetaia, me included. But I think some people will maybe just think, oh, it's another routine stoppage for Opetaia. Don't think that's the case. I think Zurdo Ramirez is good. I think it's not a foregone conclusion that Opetaia beats him. Don't get me wrong. I am backing Opetaia to beat Zurdo Ramirez if that fight does happen in what first portion of 2026 or at some stage. I do back Opetaia to win that fight. Probably by a stoppage as well, maybe points. But I do actually think it's quite a close one. Like, say it went 12 rounds, I could see it being a 7-5, maybe and not a wide 8-4 if you kind of get what I mean. I think Zurdo Ramirez would win rounds. I think Opetaia would win rounds, and it would definitely be a competitive fight. Ultimately, I do see Opetaia beating Zurdo. But that's not to say that I wouldn't if Ramirez beat Opetaia and outboxed him and won on points, would I be shocked? Probably not, mate. But yeah, I'd be backing Opetaia to win that, edging towards points, but a late stoppage wouldn't surprise me. But a very competitive and close fight.
No, you know what? I'm not disagree with that. I agree with you in the sense that people look at that from the outside and go, "Oh, OPETAIA, world class, possibly elite level fighter." Blast Ramirez out of there. But you actually look at what Opetaia's done, and yeah, all right, he's got some a high relatively high KO percentage, but a lot of those names on there, for want of a better phrase, aren't really world level fighters. So look at when he stepped in with Breedis, obviously went points with Breedis both times out. As kind of more of a kind of calibration of where Jay Opetaia is actually than a lot of the names on that list. So I think, like you, I think actually if Ramirez could be competitive in that fight, and I think Ramirez definitely got enough to see the distance in that fight. So I think we'd be Opetaia points as well. So we are in unanimous agreement when it comes down to it. That we actually have Jay Opetaia beating Zeta Ramirez, but on points. But let's take a little look, I suppose, at ZURDO really, and I'll throw some other names at you. Obviously, they were mentioned. Obviously, they lost to Bivol. If you're having a sort of like a, a rematch against Bivol, or maybe sort of someone like a David Benavidez, if Benavidez moves up. Obviously, we know with Benavidez kind of moving through the division seemingly, but if he came up as well, like how would you rate those fights? Obviously, Mexican interest in that one as well, and obviously the rematch against Bivol. How would you see that fight playing out with this version of ZURDO Ramirez? Just put a bit of a run together.
Yeah, if it's up a cruiser, I think Bivol would outbox him again, just like he did with ease, really, the last time in their first fight. I think that's, yeah, I'd be very shocked if Bivol didn't win that fairly handily. Just that's how good he is, even up a cruiser where Zerto has looked good. Benavidez is an interesting one, isn't it? Because like you're talking about a super middleweight there who's really only moved up to light heavyweight because of the frustration of not getting the Canelo fight. Ultimately, though, he does have a big frame and like I won't say he's flashy, but like I could see a world in which Benavidez does move up the cruiserweight in like a few years' time, to be honest with you. Um, so that's a tough one, you know.
Close
That's
fight,
a
that,
really
yeah.
tough. Yeah, I like that fight. All Mexican affair too. Yeah, I love that fight. Do you know what? I'm gonna go Benavidez wins that. I'm gonna go Benavidez. Yeah, I'm gonna go Benavidez stops Sergio Ramirez. Um, up a cruiser in a few years' time. Because I mean, yes, Zerto's an established cruiserweight now, but like he's not that going to be that much bigger than David Benavidez, really, if Benavidez puts the weight on properly and goes up. This is all if buts and maybes down the line, but yeah, quite high on David Benavidez right now, so why not throw him in with Zurdo Ramirez next year, year after, up a cruiser, all Mexican affair. I'm all in on that, mate. Yeah, and I'd be back in Benavidez maybe to stop Zurdo late.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'd back Benavidez to win that fight as well. I think I'd probably go points at this stage, me. But again, I'm not gonna here to sort of criticize your prediction because I could equally see a world where Benavidez stops Zelda Ramirez as well. I think I totally agree with you as well around Bivol. I think Bivol's just one of those sort of it's just a different fighter. It's just an elite level fighter, isn't he? And I feel like he'll just comfortably outbox Zelda Ramirez again if they were to meet. And I think you're asking for sort of an improvement that I don't think Zelda Ramirez necessarily got, and also or Bivol to kind of diminish to the point where that makes that fight closer. I see, Bivol just having far too much from. So I'm in agreement with you. But guys, that is all we have time for on this Gilberto Ramirez versus Yuniel Dorticos preview. Let us know in the comments what you think, really how you see this fight going, your general thoughts on the fight, but also the landscape around Zelda Ramirez and Joel Pataya, who would win that one, and also maybe we talked a little bit about some sort of not some fantasy fights as such because there's a reality that they may happen, but also how you see Zerdo facing those guys like Bivol again and Benavidez if he was to move up. Paul, thank you very much for joining me. Like and subscribe to the channel. Check out all our other content on there, like big fight breakdowns, previews, reviews, all that good stuff. Subscribe and enjoy that. Paul, thank you for joining me, guys. As always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back with more previews at a later date.
Pleasure as always, mate. Cheers.